Sponsored by JMR Rentals, professional digital cinema and broadcast rentals in Brooklyn, New York. To find out more, visit their website, jmrny.com. Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend, where we go behind the scenes and talk to the creators of independent entertainment. I'm Jason Godbey, and today we're going to be giving you our review and recap of streaming movies in 2020. And joining me now via Zoom is our own Ej Argenio.
Hey, Jason, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Great to see you, my friend. I've only seen you like this, unfortunately. We haven't seen each other in person in a while.
You're not missing much.
Because, we've both been under lockdown. So I thought we're going to do a series of these. We're going to talk about some movies. We're going to talk about series. And there'll be a great list for people, if they still are in lockdown or maybe they missed some stuff because they were an essential worker and they want to catch up. So these movies that we're going to talk about today are all on the Netflix platform. And I want to start by saying that this is the first of I don't know how many part series exactly. We're going to talk about films. We're going to talk about series in the next episode. And these films are currently on Netflix. They'll probably stay on Netflix for the most part. But in case they don't, by the time you watch this, just don't at me. But anyway, we're going to talk Netflix platform. We got a lot to talk about. We are not sponsored by Netflix, nor are we endorsing Netflix. But just to get that out of the way. But let's talk about these Netflix movies. So, EJ, what do we got for our first film?
Well, a movie you and I both saw, a Spike Lee joint, To Five Bloods, which to me has been my favorite film thus far of 2020 out of all platforms. Spike's best film, in my opinion, arguably next to Malcolm X, starring Delroy Lindo and Chadwick Boseman. A great film about a group of vets going back to Vietnam to recover the body of their dead brother who they lost during the Vietnam War. And in the process, they're also trying to recover some treasure that they buried along the way while under attack. And now some 40, 50 years later, the gang gets back together. And even though the Vietnam War is over, they encounter a number of obstacles along the way in the jungle, everything from missionaries to landmines. It's a tense film, wrought with tension, but one of Spike Lee's best films, in my opinion, and just the best picture of 2020 so far.
I don't know what the new Oscar rules are because, it used to be a film had to play in a theater for a certain number of weeks, at least on the coast. But now I think they've thrown that out the window.
I believe because of quarantine and lockdown and coronavirus and all that, a film like To Five Bloods is up for Oscar contention. They did waive those theater rules that films had to abide by, which is why we saw films like The Irishman play for a couple of weeks in theaters last year prior to get its Oscar nominations. So I believe it is in contention. And in my opinion right now, aside from being the best picture, I think what's even more of a lock is Delroy Lindo as the best actor of the year, which is not only well-deserved by him, a long-standing actor acting in Spike Lee films and a number of other films. He's definitely transcended the industry. It's kind of unjust for him in one factor because I wish this film was in theaters. I wish it could have that same type of feel because it's a great film to watch at home, but it's one of those films, and I'm sure I'll get to others on this list, where I was like, wow, this was made for a theater. This was made for, a dark room with surround sound and some popcorns and a refreshment and just, something you're supposed to encounter with other audience members. But, he really did steal the show. The performances are great all around. Aside from Lindo, I mentioned you have Chadwick Boseman, you have Clark Peters, but Delroy Lindo really steals the show.
I hadn't seen him in a while. I had seen him in a bunch of, he's been in a bunch of Spike Lee films. Wonderful actor, but I guess he's very selective about the projects that he takes. The film did do a couple of things that I was a little bit like wondering about, and I thought they kind of stalled the movie a little bit, and I wish, I don't know, it's
a little rhetorically heavy. I guess that's the
Yeah,
way to put it.
that's a good. Yeah,
And I expect it from Spike Lee. You know, his films have a lot of messaging, especially from the African American Black community, and rightly so. In typical Spike fashion, a little things were, you know, hammered. You know, the nail was hammered on the head a little too much and a little over the top. But that also goes along with Spike's filmmaking. So while I thought it detracted a little bit, I think the messaging is important, and it is, you know, customary for Spike. So I didn't feel like he swayed away from any of his typical leanings.
yeah. This is definitely one of the most Spike Lee films I've ever seen. You know, it's a very Spike Lee film, and you know, I do feel like, and you know, this is definitely a question for another time, but I do feel like a lot of movies today have kind of forgotten subtext, and everything is just text right now. Like everything is overt and over the top. Spike can get away with it. Most directors can't.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see a return to subtext at some point, but I also do feel like, given the time, maybe we need this. Maybe I don't need it, you don't need it, but there are probably people out there who needed to hear this out loud. You know
Of
what I mean?
course.
You
And
know?
we talk about this from a film perspective. You know, does it take away from the film? Not that, you know, the messaging isn't needed and it's over the top in that fashion, but just when you look at the film as a whole, it could detract from that overall impact strictly from a critical film perspective.
Definitely. All right, let's move on to the next film. We've got Extraction, which is another, I think, made for Netflix movie. It's directed by a guy called Sam Hargrave, who was Chris Evans' double for Captain America and a stunt coordinator and a stuntman himself. So he comes from that background, definitely a deep action background. And it stars Chris Hemsworth, aka Thor, as a character called Tyler Rake. I don't know where they get these names from, but he is a mercenary. He's hired to extract this. I think it's a drug lord's child has been abducted, and he goes to extract him and save him. And this all takes place in India, and it's like it's a very action heavy film. There are some quiet bits, and Chris Hemsworth is great in the quiet bits, but mostly he just kicks a lot of ass. There is so much ass kickery in this movie, and it's very exciting. There's a great one-air car chase that happens in it, and I think that Hargrave has definitely proven himself that he can direct action. But again, like we were talking about, this would be a fun movie to see in a theater with a bunch of people. You know, like
Yeah, I'm not sure if this would have had a wider release. It might have been heading straight for Netflix anyway, which is fine. Yeah, this is a film straight for an action junkie. The entirety of the film, the story's good, but you're not watching a film like this for its, you know, emotional aspect. You're not watching it for the, you know, the context. You're watching it because of the grit and the tenacity of Chris Hemsworth and the obstacles he has to go through. And I really love the action, and I thought the cinematography really added layers to this film. The story is not all that great, but yeah, like I said, it's just a fun film. It's not that long. If you're an action junkie, you'll enjoy it.
it also had me like, especially with the ending. I thought, I won't give away the ending, but I thought, oh, you know, if they can sequelize this, they definitely will. Like, I could definitely see some Chris Hemsworth. This could be a potential Netflix franchise for them. And it's fun. Like, it's a lot of fun to watch. It's exciting, you know. And as action goes, it's not like crazy cut. There's not a ton of like a shaky cam. It's well directed. Like, you know where people are during the vast amount of ass kicking. And Hemsworth is good. He's got a ton of screen presence. He is a bit superhero-like in the movie because he's kicking down doors and knocking people out, and he knows every weapon and every vehicle, and like, he's just kind of like one of these Superman army guys in a movie kind of thing.
And if anything, it's worth watching for this long one shot that they have during one of the action sequences where they go from the street to automobiles back into the street. And it goes through an extended period of time, very much at like something out of Children of Men or 1918. So just for that alone, from a filmmaking perspective, it was really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, lots of fun. Definitely recommended. Let's move on to our next. Now, this one you saw, but I did not see. Eurovision Song Contest: The Story of Fire Saga, starring Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams. What? Tell us about the film.
Who doesn't love a good Will Ferrell comedy? Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams play an Icelandic pop duo trying to make it in the industry, and they come from a small town and near the Northern Lights, and no one in their community believes in them, and Iceland is looking for its representative in what is a real contest. I didn't know this before the time, but Eurovision is a real singing competition in Europe where they get a representative from each of the countries in Europe, and they perform over the course of 2 nights and perform the same song, which is very interesting. And it's almost like the Olympics. The countries then, there are judges from specific countries, and they judge the performances and decide who makes it into the next round and final competition. And it's an underdog story. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it. Some of Will Ferrell's films can really be out there. While it has certain elements of that, the songs are not parody. They have slight elements of it, but they're really well done. They're songs you can listen to in your car if you're a pop fan, especially international pop fan. It ended up surprising me a lot more than I thought, because it's a little drawn out. There are like 5 different points where you feel like it's ending, and it's not. It's on the longer end for a comedy, about 2 hours, if not a little bit more. But it's an uplifting story, and it kind of leaves you feeling with that warm feeling inside that a lot of underdog films do. I couldn't help but think when the film ended that while it's not a sports film, because of that competition and because of the way they were looked at as underdogs, it had the same effect on me. So it's one of those films that I went into with low expectations. It wasn't the grandest film I've ever seen, but I ended up emotionally enjoying it a lot more than I anticipated. And when that kind of surprise hits you with the film, it makes it that much more enjoyable.
Yeah, I felt with some Will Ferrell. I like Will Ferrell, and I've liked
Mm-hmm.
him ever since like Elf, as the lead in the movie. And I think
Mm-hmm.
Rachel McAdams is she's one of the hardest working and steadily working actors in Hollywood, and she's very underrated. She's funny. She can do drama. But I do feel like a lot of Farrell films, sometimes it's like, hey, can we get an editor? Like sometimes I think they need a trim. You know what I mean? Would you recommend it?
Definitely. I think it's a fun family film. Again, not an Oscar-nominated film, but good music. I even picked up the soundtrack after the film. I downloaded it. I've listened to it a few times after seeing it. But yeah, definitely one you want to, maybe not for kids who are like in the 4th grade, but preteens, teenagers, the type of movie you would watch after watching a show like American Idol or The Masked Singer, something like that. But I think something the whole family can enjoy together.
Yeah, I think it's a thing too, like that the Eurovision thing. And most Americans, I don't think, know about that. It's
Mm-hmm.
very big overseas, but a lot of us just, we don't know about it. So it's kind of educational in that respect. I'll check it out. So the next film is another film that I think you saw, but I did not, called The Platform, which is I don't know if that was made for Netflix or if it was picked up by Netflix.
I believe it was picked up for distribution via Netflix. Spanish film directed by Galder Gaztelu Urrutia, starring Ivan Masege. And I apologize if I'm butchering those names in least. My apologies. Yeah, it's a horror film, man. It is dark. Now, this is a film not for the squeamish, for a number of reasons. Not only are there is there a lot of gruesome violence, but the whole film centers around the ability for prisoners to eat. And what I mean by that is the platform is the structure they're encapsulated in. It's where the whole film takes place. It's basically like a tower that the height of it is unknown. It's speculated that could be 100 floors, maybe more. Obviously, seeing the film, I know the approximate amount, but let's just say a large building-like structure where there's basically a pit in the center of each floor. And around the pit is some concrete encavings and a few beds, because that's essentially the prisoner's cell. And there are 2 prisoners to each floor. And each month they change the floors they're on. Now, why is that important? Because they get fed once a day. It starts from the top and goes all the way down to the bottom. So if you're at the top floor, all the food that has been prepared, this magnificent feast, something you'd see, in the grandest of medieval times, the greatest of of culinary decadence, presented before you, and you're only given a limited amount of time to eat. And when the buzzer comes up, the food goes down, and whatever's left, the people below, the prisoners below can eat. However, everyone's gluttonous, or the aspects of gluttony and selfishness are played into this film. There's a lot of social elements that are symbolic elements, rather, that are displayed in this film, and it also talks a lot about the human condition. And it's a horror film because of the violence, but also a lot of symbolic horror. The platform is supposed to represent, evil. Some speculated, right? They're in hell, and it ends on a very analytic note. There's not a clear-cut ending. It's not Shawshank Redemption. I guess that's the best way to put it. Between the food and the violence, it can become very grim. There are even elements of cannibalism in this film. So, yeah, this is a film not for the squeamish, not for the viewer who doesn't like violence, but from a horror perspective, it is definitely original and creative and something that hasn't been done. And I love a good horror film that you can really sink your teeth into and analyze on a different perspective. It's not just about the fear, but the social elements. It's one of those films I like to say, if you're in college, you can do a thesis paper on.
That's the one criticism I've heard of the movie, is that it seems like it's a metaphor for classism and different things like that, but it seems to be a bit like on the nose. And I don't know if that's because maybe it's a foreign film and that's more of that style. But that's the one thing I've heard about it, is that it's a little bit like, okay, we get it. We get it. It's a metaphor kind of thing.
Yes, but because the film's runtime is not that long, it doesn't feel as on the nose as you say. Plus, the film diverts from that. It's not just about the lead actor played by Ivan Meneghe's character. It's not about just him. There's an obstacle presented along the way. The thoughts that there could be a child who's caught as a prisoner, and one of the rules clearly stated is that there are no children allowed to be in here. Children should not be here. So it does divert from that and does take your attention elsewhere. And it sees some of the other prisoners working together with our lead. So it does detract from that somewhat. But yes, it is very symbolic, and classism is definitely one of the strong elements.
Would you recommend it?
To film fans that have no problem with international films and have no problems with subtitles and are fans of horror and gore, go for it. But this is not for everyone. I want to make that very clear.
All right, so moving on, this is the most recent Netflix joint that we both saw, was Project Power. It's directed by Joost and Schulman. They directed one of the Paranormal Activity movies and also a film called Nerve. They have a very kinetic style, and it stars Jamie Foxx, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and a new-ish to movies, Dominique Fishback. The premise is a bit ridiculous. It's about a drug that's a street drug that's a pill that gives you superpowers for 5 minutes. The movie takes place in New Orleans, and I have a feeling it takes place in New Orleans because that's where they got the best tax break.
Yep.
The big standout for me was Dominique Fishback. I think she's really wonderful. And Jamie Foxx also, I think, is terrific. And Joe Gordon-Levitt is in it as well. I think he's good, but I said in my review, I actually wrote a review of this one for the website. I didn't think the movie really gave him enough to do. He's just kind of there.
I also say that another person in the film, Courtney B. Vance, who plays Gordon Levitt's, chief of police, in New Orleans, and they kind of hinted a storyline with him without giving away what it is, and they never really get back to it, or they never get to it at all, really. Fishback, I've actually seen some of her work before. She was in HBO's The Deuce. I was surprised because her character in Project Power is that of a teenager, but she's played older roles and doesn't come off like a kid. So it was interesting casting. If they really wanted her, I think they could have changed her to a college student because her character has aspirations outside of the classroom. She deals this pill to raise money so she can get out of New Orleans because her aspiration is to be a rapper. It's fun to watch the transformations of our characters via this power pill that's in the film. Another actor and musician who's in the film, Machine Gun Kelly. It's funny how people were advertised for this as having been in the film and then really only being in it for 5 minutes. I call it the Drew Barrymore syndrome from Scream. Let's advertise them, and then when people see the film, they'll see they're not really in it. The superhero aspect is interesting, and the visual look, of the film was great. But yeah, I felt the story was lacking, was not really captivating, was very rushed. We didn't really get to feel for our characters and who they were. So when we're taking this journey with them, we don't really feel compelled as much by them. They left it open where sequels could happen, but I hope, if there is a sequel, the storyline is a little bit more narrowed set.
If I could be very movie reviewer-ish, I would say that, like The Pill, the movie has an impact, but it doesn't last.
Yeah.
It sort of fades away. And it's not bad. I think it's like a nice little distraction I think I wrote that in my review too. It's like a nice little distraction, especially if you're in lockdown, or, if you've had a hard day and you don't want to think too hard, you just watch this kinetic action extravaganza. Great special effects, some really nice spectacle in it. I thought that was cool. The effect, like when somebody takes the drug, that was really cool and really impactful. I like that stuff a lot.
And I was a fan of Nerve. I saw Nerve, so I liked Nerve. I was excited to see this. I know Nerve didn't get the greatest reviews, but I felt that was a more original concept, the story that they were able to, grab the bull by the horns a little bit easier with. And this one was just out of that possibility because you're dealing with so many existential elements.
Our last film was very, very popular, got a ton of views on Netflix, which is Old Guard, directed by Gina Price Blythewood, starring Charlize Theron and another person that I didn't know before, Kiki Lane. This actress I thought was very good. This is a covert team of immortal mercenaries who basically have been around for centuries, kicking ass throughout the world to try to make it better. It was reminiscent of like Highlander to me, in a way.
I thought it had a bit of a Matrix feel to it too.
Yeah, there's some Matrix, some Highlander. I thought like the story structure was like fine. It's written by Greg Rucka, who's adapting his graphic novel, and I like his work. He actually did a lot of work on comics like Wonder Woman, and he's a really good writer. And he wrote it, kind of like with the director on one side and Charlize Theron on the other. And I feel like you feel that a little bit because there's these elements of drama and where I kind of wanted the movie to just move more. Mm-hmm. And they also, like, I don't know, it's just different things. Like, they seem to be kind of sad about being immortal all this time. They just seem really tired of it.
They brought up a lot of, different questions. And they brought up aspects of the character that then weren't addressed, and then different storylines that they never touched upon again. When you watch the film, there's something that seems clear that's going on with Theron's character, something about her, especially with her immortality. And at least what I'll say is there's a feeling that her powers are dwindling. But while they hinted it so much, they never really finished that storyline. And it feels like this was more of a setup for future films rather than making a complete film here. And while
lots of world building going on and a whole subplot, there was like these flashbacks to another character who has nothing to do with the main plot, and that they kind of use later for like a sequel teaser. But yeah, I kind of felt like, why am I seeing this? If this movie isn't about, why am I just, they could have cut probably a good 10, 15 minutes out. We wouldn't have missed it, and we would have gotten to, the action is really good. The action that's in it is really good. Mm-hmm. Charlize Theron with this crazy axe and just like, like killing swaths of soldiers, and the badassery of like,
she's Mad Max in this.
Yeah, she well, it is like the one thing I wanted to say is, to me also, like, Charlize Theron is a wonderful actress, and she's great. She's great in everything. I've never seen her I haven't really seen her in a bad movie, and I haven't seen her be bad in a movie. but I think she's really strong here. And I also like the newcomer. I liked Kiki Lane. I didn't think she was really holding her own against people like Charlize Theron, and also I always butcher his name,
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yes. So I thought, but one thing I did like about her is she's a Marine, and I think she pulls that off really well. She does the action really well, and she looks like a soldier. Like at one point they show her going into a room, and she just kind of like goes in there and does like some strategical stuff, and it looks like she had some really good training. Charlize Theron's fighting looks great, and considering she's like over 40, just more power to her, and she's probably going to make 3 more of these movies. But there were certain things I thought maybe this movie could use a trim. We could get, and I wanted more ridiculous action. Like, these guys are immortal. I wanted this movie to be more fun.
Well, I think it's definitely going in that direction. I think they'll be doing more, not only because the film set it up that way, but I think that was the intention to begin with. And right now, this is another film. If you're a action junkie, check it out. But if you really don't want to be, left on this cliffhanger with the few of the storylines that were presented, wait for the sequel. I don't think you're, missing all that much for now, and you'll probably enjoy it a lot better. I'll probably even watch the old guard prior to seeing the sequel for the first time, and sort of make a marathon out of it, if you will.
Yeah, I watched it a couple of times because I wanted to kind of give it a fair bit before I reviewed it. But yes, I'm looking forward to Old Guard 2 Immortal Boogaloo with some of the returning cast, and hopefully more fun and more excitement. But not bad. There were things lacking. The villain was kind of a mustache twister, in my opinion. He doesn't really get any character. He's just evil, big pharma man kind of thing.
The evil scientists.
Evil scientist, evil corporation, white guy kind of thing. It's a little bit tired. Hopefully, next time around we'll have more fun with these characters in the world. But anyway, buddy, I gotta wrap up because we're running out of time. But for those who want to follow you or learn more about you, where can they find you on the web?
Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Ej Argenio, at Ej Argenio.
Thank you for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content, including our movie reviews, visit our website, norestoftheweekendpodcast.com. And you can also subscribe, like, and give us a review on your favorite podcast app. Once again, I want to thank the folks at JMR Rentals for sponsoring this episode. And for Ej Argenio and myself, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.